End-of-year sales are here and you've almost cleared out your backlog? Let's fix that. Here's a collection of games that are self-contained, single-player experiences, and not live service soul destroyers. Several of these are older titles, so there's likely to be pretty steep discounts, depending on when you see this. Oh, and none of these are affiliate links, so check is there any deal or something similar for your best price. And if you're a fan of how I evidently hate money, maybe push the YouTube buttons, yeah? These are in no particular order, so there's no clickbait here about how number 3 will blow your mind. Anyway, let's get into it. Number 1, Mad Max. Car combat games are hard to do, and harder to do well. Avalanche heard that and said, hold my beer, by nailing that, while also serving up some really good melee combat, exploration, and meaningful player customization and progression for both you and your car. This one's from 2015, so I'm fairly certain you could run it on a potato by today's standards. But don't let that scare you. Some aspects haven't aged perfectly, but the entire loop of scavenging the wasteland to upgrade your car to be more absurdly deadly while chasing down caricature-esque bad guys is supremely satisfying. Meet the game on its terms and enjoy the ride. Ha, car jokes. Number 2, Days Gone. I played this one when it came out originally on PS4, then again when the PS5 upgrade came, and I'm seriously considering another playthrough on PC now. Days Gone puts you in the cut of a biker. Think 1%er, not spandex and a disregard for traffic laws, making his way through what remains of the world after a zombie apocalypse in search of meaning. This one has well-executed character and vehicle progression, a masterfully crafted story that will surprise you with emotional beats, and satisfying combat all around. Salt-in stealth that works well, environmental puzzles and interactions that make sense and serve as opportunities for excellent emergent gameplay, and massive hordes of zombies as regional boss encounters in a bespoke open world. And it's a recipe for success. Easily worth a look, even if you're burnt out on open world games. Number 3, Hotline Miami. Hotline Miami is awkward to nail down. It's not quite a puzzle game, it's not quite a twin-stick shooter, and it's not quite a literary treatise on anti-violence and meta-narratives. And there's enough pixelated gore to make the 1990 version of Total Recall blush. Put preconceived notions away, strap in, and chip away at the line between fantasy and reality. Each level has you clearing increasingly intricate indoor environments in equally increasingly gratuitously bloody fashion, while building on skills and understanding from the previous one, until by the end you're a force of pixelated fury and will that John Wick would think twice about stepping to. Strong recommend, but limited replayability unless you're the type to chase high scores and all the unlockables. Plus it's retrowave, so of course I'm all about it. Number 4, Warhammer 40,000 Battlesector. Games Workshop isn't shy about licensing their IP for video games. Some of these are better than others. Battlesector is a glorious halfway point between the tabletop experience and a turn-based tactics game. Is XCOM like a term? It's not my usual genre, so it's a term here now, at least. I've been in the Warhammer hobby for 25, 26 years now, and Battlesector captures the essence of the game without getting bogged down by everything tied to tabletop. Some light list building mechanics to decide your force on each mission, good amount of depth without taking you out of the moment-to-moment gameplay, and a healthy respect for the reference material. Now, I've only played the base game, but last I checked, there were several additional expansions and DLC to stretch the experience further. Well worth it. Number 5, NieR Automata. Automata is difficult to describe effectively in a recommendation without spoiling the entire experience. Suffice to say, NieR Automata is one of very few games that I wish I could erase from memory, just so I could experience it again for the first time. On the surface, it looks like your standard, well-executed cinematic third-person action game with excellent combat, in-depth character progression and build crafting, well-done puzzles and secrets to find, and a story which feels a little bit like Fever Dream at first, but blossoms into something truly special by the end. This is a lie. It is so much more than that. To fully experience the game, multiple playthroughs are mandatory. This doesn't mean your standard New Game Plus cycle where you repeat the same experience over and over and over. Each playthrough takes you down alternate facets of the story. And the final true ending is jaw-dropping. Like 10 out of 10, no notes, gold star. And I really can't say anything more about it without spoiling those moments. So if you've not tried it, maybe remedy that. Number 6, Bloodstained, Ritual of the Night. Ritual of the Night is one of the best Metroidvanias, in my opinion, in recent memory, and one of 2 to earn a spot on this list. To be fair, this is from the same guy who made Symphony of the Night, so it's unsurprising that this one slaps. The art style and character design might turn some folks away at first glance, but make no mistake, this is not one to be missed. Player onboarding and pacing of new abilities and mechanics is done well without leaning too far towards either extreme of being excessively hand-holdy or deep-end tossing. When we're talking about Metroidvanias, the most pivotal mechanic for me is the platforming. Bad platforming means bad Metroidvania. Thankfully, controls for movement and combat in Ritual of the Night really shine. Everything is crisp, clean, polished, has a really good amount of depth. If you haven't played this and you even remotely enjoy the genre, give it a try. Number 7, Deadlink. Now, I've reviewed this one on the channel before. A link to that video is up in the card and the description if you're willing to tolerate a lower production quality back from when I was worse at this than I am now. Deadlink is an FPS roguelite with excellent gunplay, flexible character progression, and vibes for days. Sound design here is a clear standout, both in terms of like weapon sounds, overall combat vibes, and a pretty banging soundtrack. This one came out a while ago, but more recently got some significant updates from the devs. Each class comes with diverse and defining weapons, abilities, and playstyles. Enemy design is solid, and the game itself really just feels good to play. You're not going to be fighting with the controls here. As I said in the video review, normally roguelites and I don't get along, but this is one of 3 to make this list. Number 8, Grim Dawn. If you're in the market for a solid ARPG with obscene amounts of build freedom and diversity, but don't want to spring for early access on PoE 2, Grim Dawn has you covered. It's older, but also has the benefit of multiple expansions that normally go on sale as a complete package, and the modding scene for the game is vibrant. For a while, this was my literal treadmill game while rehabbing from a leg injury, since it's mostly playable on controller. So that's a solid bonus for people who care about that. And I'm pretty sure I clocked somewhere north of 100 miles with this one, if that gives you an idea of how much playtime you can get out of it. Character progression is nice, combat feels fun and impactful, and you can come up with some truly wacky character concepts that still work. Visuals hold up for its age, and the expansions bring meaningful improvements to the base game. Like solid out of 10. Mods bring that score up to a bespoke experience that's exactly what you want out of 10. Remember what I said at the beginning about PoE 2? Even if you've picked that up, maybe get this too, and play it while you wait for them to fix Endgame and release the other campaign acts. Number 9, Returnal. Returnal is a fever dream of a tough-as-nails experience and another of the 3 roguelites on deck here. I first played this on PS5, though I hear the PC port is well done. Make no mistake, you're gonna get beat up by this third-person roguelite bullet hell initially. Once you train your brain to see the gaps between the projectiles, there's such a shift in experience. It's as though you can suddenly see the code in the Matrix and your endgame Nioh. Graphics and sound design are stellar. Exploration feels meaningful and rewarding. Salt in a brain-bending sci-fi story that requires some attention and exploration. And you got a banger of an experience that's easily good for 20 hours or so. This is another one where the less I say about the game, the better your experience of it will be. If your ears perked up at roguelite bullet hell and you haven't played it because Sony bad or whatever, remedy that. Number 10, Lords of the Fallen, 2023 version. Oh man, I really wanted to like this one when it first came out. That was an uphill battle, and one I completed by hate playing it towards the end. Thankfully, Hexworks have been absolute chads about post-release support and have in essence created an entirely new experience from the bones of what it was initially. Mechanics are fundamentally reworked from the ground up. Character progression, new game plus, balancing, and get this, animation tweaks and improvements over a year later. Who does that? It's so different at this point that I'm considering a fresh Let's Play for the channel just so more people can know about it. Conceptually, this one feels like a return to the more curated, linear experiences of the first three Souls titles, as contrasted with the open world nature of Elden Ring. So that may rub some people the wrong way due to the nature of boss filtering, but it's so good now. Combat feels weighty and deliberate without becoming sluggish, and the entire thing leans in hard to the cinematic dark fantasy vibe. I'd have struggled to recommend this at release except for die-hard Souls-like fans, but it's an easy sell now. Number 11, Middle-earth: Shadow of War. Years later, I still remember Bolg. Bolg, the lowly grot who probably got lucky by third-partying me while I was fighting other elites. Bolg, who rose through the ranks, filling the gaps in the orc leadership my wanton murder spree carelessly left wide open for his ravenous ambition. Bolg, the general who continued to wreck my face at every happenstance meeting until he was effectively a raid boss. Shadow of War and its predecessor are the only titles I've experienced that truly led me to despise digital NPC whose entire plaguing presence upon my existence was solely my fault. If the purpose of art is to have the subject experience emotion, then yeah, I'd say this qualifies. Shadow of War is an open-world action RPG that doesn't fall into the usual tropes of, like, go to this tower, hit all the waypoints, blah, 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 that plague the genre. You pair up with the ghost of a notable character from the Lord of the Rings setting and drop into some pretty excellent combat, stealth mechanics, and both player and enemy progression that will drive you to the soaring heights of visceral disdain for your nemesis. It is a 7-year-old game, so parts of it do show their age, but it is still absolutely worth the money, hard drive space, and time. Number 12, Nioh 2. Nioh 2 is a unique thing in the third-person hardcore action combat RPG Souls-like genre. I explained it earlier this week to a friend as, it's like Dark Souls 3, Onimusha, and Diablo had a kid. It is not an easy game until it all clicks and your build really comes together, and honestly, it remains mechanically challenging even then. It's a Team Ninja game, so that should give you a clear sense of design philosophy. This is the same studio that's on record saying that they made the Xbox version of Ninja Gaiden harder after testers complained about it being difficult. So, know what you're getting into. That said, it has perhaps the most responsive, deep, fluid, and rewarding sets of mechanics relating to combat on both a moment-to-moment basis and from a build crafting standpoint in any title in the genre. Every weapon has multiple stances, and each stance has unlockable combos that you can pick and choose from and flow through at will, while weapon swapping and weaving magic and solid parry system and demon-infused limit breaks into the mix. You will struggle with this game initially, most likely. And this is a get good moment, but in the proper way, not the way fools will sling it around online. The only way forward is to improve as a player, and the shared experience of incremental improvement that can only be earned is the core of what get good actually means. Let me give it the hard sell here. I'm a FromSoft fan all the way, and I like it better than the base version of Elden Ring. Number 13, Sleeping Dogs Definitive Edition. Releasing in 2014, this might be the oldest game on the list, but don't let that fool you. Sleeping Dogs is an absolute romp of a title that punches far above its weight. If you're a fan of Donnie Yen movies, this is right up your alley. The game is somewhere between GTA and Yakuza and puts you in the shoes of an undercover cop trying to dismantle triad cells in modern-day Hong Kong. Core gameplay is solid. Vehicles feel smooth for the time. Melee and ranged combat is done well, and the city feels quite alive as you work through a surprisingly well-crafted storyline. The definitive edition includes all 24 additional pieces of DLC content, along with technical and graphical overhauls. Side activities are entertaining enough that they may wind up derailing your efforts to stay focused, which is both a perk and a drawback, depending on your outlook. Number 14, SYNTHETIK, Legion Rising. SYNTHETIK is an over-the-top twin-stick roguelite shooter that has strong Smash TV vibes, while creating meaningful depth through upgrade systems and character classes that do actually play and feel different, instead of just being a subtle variation on the same idea. Here, imagine if Judge Dredd and Metal Gear had a kid and then force-fed them power thirst throughout infancy before shipping them off to a Ripper Doc for all the mods and subsequent cyberpsychosis. SYNTHETIK is that now murderously powerful kid. Deaths and leveling up via the roguelite mechanics are a necessary part of the process, but each run comes with its own dopamine hits and lows, so you won't mind all that much. Controls can take a bit of getting used to, but once it clicks, you'll wonder why other games don't follow suit. Oh, and there's gloriously over-the-top old-school boss fights. Winning. I'm weird in that I prefer the original to the sequel, but these frequently go on sale in a bundle for both. Can't go wrong either way. Number 15, The Messenger. The Messenger is the other 2D Metroidvania on this list, and the elegance it delivers more than earns the mention. I've already talked about how important movement mechanics are to me in this genre, and The Messenger delivers in spades. At its core, the game embraces concepts and mechanics in ways only possible in video games. I'm hesitant to go into too much detail because the realization is part of the experience. Suffice to say, the core identity of the game and mechanics span generations. There's multiple narratives at play here, and subtle fourth wall breaks are done well enough that they add to the experience as a whole instead of just feeling shoehorned in. Parts of the game are legitimately difficult and demand precision, but never feel unfair. Overall, it's a strong entry into the 2D action platformer Metroidvania space that does some very unique things with style and character while firmly prioritizing fun factor. Number 16, Hi-Fi Rush. I am so bad at rhythm games, like comically bad most of the time. Hi-Fi Rush mashes up a really excellent action platformer spectacle fighter with bonuses for acting on the beat to a banging soundtrack in each level. Writing is top-notch and feels like you're playing a movie, but in a good way. Like the production value on this is amazing sort of way, not the, well, I guess I'm going to watch a 45-minute cutscene now because I'm playing Metal Gear Solid 4 kind of way. There's clarity of art direction and character design all throughout, and this comes on top of pristine moment-to-moment gameplay that leans into the absurd while maintaining coherency in universe. Movement and combat is excellent, like 10 out of 10, no notes. Complexity increases as you progress, but the pacing is well done to drive the feeling of mechanical and power growth throughout. It really is a shame that the studio was a victim of corporate culling earlier this year. Not sure about replay value here, but I only played through it once and felt like it was a solid subjective value for money at the time. Number 17, MechWarrior 5 Clans. I've also already done an in-depth review on this one. Link is in the card and description if you want a more detailed breakdown. Short version. Clans is a worthy successor to earlier narrative-driven MechWarrior titles that delivers a solid experience with all the trappings, bells, and whistles you'd expect from a mainline game. There's a decent amount of assumed knowledge of the universe, but they do a decent job of explaining necessary concepts while remembering to show and not tell. Gameplay and mech building is competent, and the 20 to 30 hour playtime for the campaign, with limited replay value, makes this an ideal candidate for sales, I think. I've not played the DLC yet, since both the review and my initial playthrough finished well before that released, but if you want more MechWarrior, you'll be satisfied. Oh, and there's multiplayer co-op for the entire campaign, if you have friends who also like MechWarrior. So there you go. At least 1,000 or 2 hours of self-contained, complete experiences Likely to be on a discount that won't get a rebalancing patch breaking your game. Looking at you, Saber, Arrowhead. I keep telling people to check out other games if they're unsatisfied with the state of their current main title. So here's the legwork done for you. I've been Bald Squid. See you next time.